I've been putting bad guys away for 44 years. I've been part of investigating over 1,000 deaths. I've been a part of putting more than 400 murders in prison, and I'm still at it. I'm Tim Corbett. These are my cases. This isn't your typical criminal profile podcast. This is Killer Catchers. Tim Corbett for Killer Catchers. Tonight we're going to be talking about Barbara Sheppard, a lady that was killed on December 22nd, 2011 in Mishawaka, Indiana. Tonight I have with me Galen Pelletier, South Bend police officer. He was an investigator on the case. Brian Cook, St. Joseph County police officer. He was an investigator also. Next to him is Lance Anderson. Lance is a St. Joseph County police officer, a technician, and next to him is retired now Ken Cornelis. He was a St. Joseph police officer. He just retired within about the last 30 days. So he's on the downslide. He ought to be nice and smooth tonight. This was a case of jealousy and greed, as a lot of them are. You'll hear a lot of details tonight that probably going to take you back a little bit. This was a very violent, gory homicide. It took a lot of investigation, took a lot of hard work, a lot of piecing together of evidence that all came together eventually. And a guy by the name of Joseph Ware was arrested. Ware ended up getting 60 years. Again, as usual on this show, we don't talk a whole lot about him. You heard his name, you may hear it a couple other times in here, but he's not going to get any respect because he doesn't deserve any respect. Barbara Sheppard does. Galen, I'm going to start off with you. Tell me a little bit about this case, what time we got this call, how we got the call, and where we went.
So this, like he had said, she was actually killed on December 22nd, but we weren't called to the scene until around 2 in the morning on December 23rd. We received a call from our dispatch saying that Mishawaka had located a body of a female at Low Bob's, which is at 1401 Lincoln Way East of Mishawaka. It appeared that she was murdered. So we were activated and gone out to the scene. Brian Cook and I were the two investigators, and like he had said, Lance and Ken were the two techs. So this happened on the 23rd, and we went out there. We had a lot of activity going on because there's a lot of police officers in there from Mishawaka. We were getting hit up with, hey, there's this person here we need to talk to, there's a person here we need to talk to. And then we started doing our thing. We started doing our interviews. The tech started processing the scene, and it was just like you said, it's one of those things where we just all came together, pieced everything together, and we were able to have an outcome for Barbara to get justice for her.
Well, Lance, you and Kenny went out there. Describe the basics of investigating out there at the scene, the very rudimentary things that you do at the very beginning to get things in process.
Well, the responding officers from Mishawaka that had went out there and discovered Barbara showed us where she was located. We did a precursory walkthrough just to see what evidence equipment we might need out of the van to help process the scene. The area was on the east side of the building, about anywhere from 12 to 16 feet of distance between the building and a privacy fence. The only opening was out facing towards the street. The back also had privacy fence, so it was a pretty dark area back there. There was no light or anything of that nature. We do our walkthrough. We find the female body laying there that obviously Mishawaka had shown us. And at that point, Alex Arndt and I, who were working that scene, came up with a game plan to go back and begin photo documenting it and collecting evidence and working our way inward.
Okay, and obviously there was a traumatic injury to the neck.
Correct. As we're, processing the area and her, she's got really dirty backs of her hands. Blood. She had blood dried on the front of her, or drying blood on the front of her, down her pants. She had a very severe laceration on her neck. Her hair, she had longer hair. It was bloody and matted, so you couldn't tell the extreme nature of the wound to the neck at that time, but you could tell it was bad, especially with the amount of blood.
Okay, so when you start did you start from the street, from the parking lot, and just started systematically going through it?
Correct. Her car was actually parked near the area where she had been found in the front of the parking lot. We went through and processed her car, looking for items that might have been related to it. I believe there was an airsoft magazine near the back tire on the driver's side. There weren't any pellets in it, but it didn't appear that it had been there for very long. So, if that was related, how was that related? So that's documented with photographs, and then it was collected. From the car, we would work our way in and start processing the body.
Let's go back to that magazine. That magazine at the back of the tire, that showed us that was not ran over by that vehicle.
Correct.
Okay, so it had to be somebody dropped it after she had parked.
Correct, because she would have driven over it parking her vehicle.
Did that have any significance?
On my end, I don't know. The investigators went and did their portion of that. I don't know if they found a related item to that or not.
I think something that would be important for the listeners is us being all law enforcement. We know we're talking about airsoft and magazine. An airsoft gun is a gun that's a replica to look like a real gun. And a magazine is what holds the pellets. Many people have been shot and killed because of an airsoft gun because they do look that real. So when he's talking about the magazine, our thought process was that she was lured with a airsoft gun, and that had been dropped during the struggle somewhere along the way.
Okay, lured, you're talking about put the gun on her and forced her.
Yes. Because she was where she was back in that corner. It was very dark, and it was.
Okay, now what relationship was he to Barbara Sheppard?
Well,
Sorry, no, good. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that he was actually married to her. They've been married for 13 years. Or they never really lived together, but they did have 2 children at the time, and he was not really there a lot, and I think that's where a lot of this, as an investigation goes on, and we continue talking about it, you'll see how the kids came into play here, and may have been what led up to what happened to Barbara.
How old was he at the time of this arrest? Was it like 37 or
37.
something? Okay, and he lived with his mommy and daddy?
Yep.
I don't think he ever lived outside of his mother's home other than when he lived with Barbara for a brief stint. And then I believe he was one of those guys that stayed in mom's basement. She fed him, clothed him, gave him money, bought his video games, and just...
And he's got 2 kids and a wife?
2 kids and a wife.
That worked out well.
Yeah.
All right, now, we're starting to do interviews.
Yes.
Who did you guys interview and where?
Well, the first interview we did was with one of her coworkers that worked with her at Lobob's, because we're trying to get the timeline to figure out, okay, what time did she work? Because we knew that she came to work, and we got that information from her boyfriend at the time, Jason, I think it was like Leba, and he had told us that she went to work, and she was supposed to get off at 8 o'clock that night, and he was watching the 2 kids at her apartment, and she never returned like she normally does. She gets off at 8, she usually gets back at 8:15, and that's kind of what got the ball rolling on how we started our investigation with it.
And Jason was Barbara's boyfriend.
Yeah.
It had absolutely nothing to do with this. In fact, he's the one that actually found her body.
He did. He was looked at long and hard and eliminated eventually, just because of the fact of he reported her not even an hour after she did not return home from Low Bob's because that was their normal routine. And she had mentioned the fear of her husband or ex-husband because he has threatened her and done all kinds of things. And the fact that he walked back down and then found her several hours later, and that kind of was a focal point at one point.
Well, as it should have been. Anybody, everybody's on the table till everybody's eliminated down to the final one. So that's understandable. Who was next on the list to talk to?
I think it was Leyva. I think we did the employees, and then, now if I believe right, we interviewed the boyfriend's stepdad because the boyfriend had contacted the stepdad and said, "Hey, I got the kids. I can't go anywhere. Can you go to Low Bob's and see if you can see anything going on?" So I believe we interviewed him and kind of got a background on the boyfriend.
Then after we got the background from the boyfriend, we learned about Joseph Ware and some of the threats he had made to her in the past. So we started digging up his information, and we found that he had a warrant for child support out of St. Joe County. And we had somebody in Elkhart go and pick him up, and they brought me down to the Metro Homicide Unit for us to interview.
Well, while all that's going on, you and Alex are doing what? And Kenny, then what were you doing?
We're out at the scene. The manager had showed up while we're processing and taking photographs of the car and stuff. She takes us inside so we can look at the video. The video was of the interior of the store. They didn't have any cameras on the outside of the store. But
Of course not.
it shows Barbara, though, counting on her drawer and leaving at 8. So that's the last Barbara appeared, alive, was at 8 o'clock when she was leaving the store. When Alex and I moved back to the area where she was and began processing that, due to it looking like it was a close physical struggle with the knife cuts or sharp instrument cuts to the neck, we bagged her hands in the event that she might have defensively collected evidence on her nails or fibers or anything. So when you have a body like that and it's combat like that, because that's what it is, she's fighting for her life, we'll bag the hands. So that way, when we go to the autopsy, they can then look for the trace evidence or the biological evidence that maybe she collected underneath her fingernails by fighting.
How long were you guys out there?
I believe we got called out and on scene. It was probably about 2:30, and I think we probably left around 6 a.m.
Of course, December 22nd, South Bend, Indiana is not exactly balmy.
No, but again, we also were out there looking when Barbara was removed from the scene to be taken in for the autopsy. We continued because there was a lot of leaf material in that area. So we were able to find a ring that had been, I believe it had belonged to her, that was out there, that had been removed from the finger, had come off the finger during the struggle or whatever. So we canvassed that area and looked for as much evidence as we possibly could. There were some gloves there. There was a bandana there. I believe the bandana that we collected was later excluded because some kids earlier in the day, one had cut himself and he'd seen what we were doing. So he came over and said, I cut my hand and I used the bandana to, stop the blood, and I threw it in the dumpster. But we spent a lot of time collecting a lot of evidence out there.
How far away was that ring from her body?
It was probably 8 foot at the most.
Okay, so when you see that, automatically your mind goes towards this was a robbery and somebody took it off, or there was a struggle, or I gave you that ring, I want it, and dropped.
That was more of the thought process because she had a lot of items on her from this. She had a candle on her, I believe, from inside the store. There was a $1 bill there, and she had the change still in her pockets. So again, the robbery portion of it, it didn't appear there was so much.
Kind of went away.
And if I recall, that ring was not a loose-fitting ring because she had an indent on her hand where that ring had been taken off.
Correct.
So,
So that automatically, I shouldn't say automatically, but it certainly makes you think, I'm taking this ring back. This is something I gave you, you're not gonna keep it.
And with
You're
the
not
amount of
gonna.
blood out there, it was probably taken by whoever, and as they were taking off, it slipped and they lost it.
Kenny, what were you doing?
I was contacted to come in, make MHU. The boyfriend, Jason Leba, came to MHU and he had blood on his hands and on his clothing, and my job was to document his hands for any sort of injuries, document the red staining on his hands, collect samples of that staining, and collect his clothing, which I did. Took detailed photographs of him to make sure that he had no injuries on him, and he had red staining on his hand. I collected his clothing, and then I was requested to go out to Goshen, Indiana with a search warrant for what would be suspect Joseph Ware's vehicle. It was a maroon Dodge Voyager, and a warrant was obtained for that vehicle. Uniform officers from Mishawaka had already secured the location, secured the vehicle out in Joseph Ware's address in Goshen. So I traveled out there, and my duties were to process this vehicle for any kind of blood evidence, any kind of trace evidence, to document it and collect any and all items that might be in the vehicle. I drove out to Goshen with search warrant in hand, signed by a judge, and then I began to execute the warrant itself. The van was parked in the driveway, and what I did first of all was take detailed photographs of the exterior of the van, looking for any kind of red staining or blood. Due to the extent of Miss Sheppard's injuries, somebody would have had to have a lot of blood on them due to the fact of her injuries. So once the outside was documented, I moved into the van and began to document the interior and look for any sort of evidence, trace evidence. Most of all, it was blood, and the usual places that a person would check would be the steering wheel, the mirror, turn signal levers. It was cold then, so somebody would have had to use the heater. Brake pedal, the gas pedal, just looking for any sort of red staining, potentially blood evidence. I collected several swabs, and I believe there was a brush that was recovered, and all of these items were turned in as evidence in this case.
Did you do the post the next day?
No, I did not.
That was Alex.
Alex, okay.
Yes.
That post, and I say it almost every show, we have to show what caused the death. And that injury to the throat, there was no doubt she was almost decapitated. It was that traumatic. So we knew that's what caused it, but we had to have a forensic pathologist tell us that is the cause of death. Nothing else caused that death. So that was it in Fort Wayne, or where was it at?
No, that was at St. Joe Regional Medical Center.
Okay, that was, what am I thinking, 2011, that was Dr. Powell, right?
Yes.
And during the course of that, the hands were bagged.
They were bagged, correct.
So on an autopsy, you don't have to go into gory detail, but give the basics so everybody understands.
Again, our end of it, the doctors is obviously to find the cause of death. What we were there to do was to document the autopsies that occurred and collect her clothing and a Indiana sexual assault kit. And Dr. Prelo also took trace lifts from the clothing prior to us collecting it. He took lifts from her hands, and we took fingernail cuttings because, again, if she's struggling and she's fighting, she can get some skin cells of her attacker underneath those. So that's why those are collected. Once those are collected, we take them back to the office. They're logged into the computer, obviously, and then submitted to the state lab.
So there's detailed photographs of the injuries and everything.
Correct.
Go back to the hands. Was there something very, very important found in there to help really make this case?
Doc Pralo found what he believed were 3 strands of hair in the hand. He did lifts on those, and those were submitted to the lab.
Okay.
And I recall the photograph of that, the hair was on her hand with dried blood on the hair, holding it to her hand. So obviously the hair was in her hand prior to becoming bloody, which proved to be very important later down the road as well.
Okay. Who did hair come back to?
Joseph Ware.
Bingo.
Bingo, and we got that from one strand of hair that was found in a hairbrush that was ultimately taken from his vehicle.
That's why, and I'm not speaking for you guys, but I guess I am, that's why you take and you take and you take, because you don't know what's important. You may think this lid is just a lid, but who cares? That lid could have the DNA from me messing with it. And I say, I've never been there. How'd your DNA get? You know, so many times those little pieces mean so much, and the detail at the autopsy makes a huge, huge difference. Now, Dr. Pralo said he called it homicide, correct?
Correct.
Now, we know we're dealing with a killer. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing other than a killer. That's what we're going to be working on. Now, things start picking up momentum. What happens from that point with our suspect?
Well, you know, with Joseph, all the lab stuff and all that, obviously it takes place down the road. It's not immediate like you see on CSI or something. It's not.
I mean, that stuff doesn't really happen?
Not at
There's
all.
not a satellite flying over
No.
these pictures off the iris of somebody's eye that sees the killer shooting that.
No, and that's some of the problems that we have with the general public believing that we can just magically create some kind of solution right then and there.
Yeah.
It's so-
Don't believe it looks cool on TV. You've seen Star Wars. We don't carry lightsabers. It doesn't exist. The stuff, a lot of times that you see on those shows, it's not factual. It was so hard for so many years to educate a jury because they've been so indoctrinated with this stuff that they show on TV. You know, there was a camera here that saw a shadow in the iris that bounced off and seen the killer shoot. It's BS. It doesn't exist. No, we don't have satellites flying over that can pull everything up for us. It's good, hard police work. It's busting your ass to get things right, doing the right thing, going hard. Now, work. And that's how you eliminate people from being put into a position where initially you may go, this could have some legs. This could be our dude. But you keep digging, because the last thing cops want to do is put somebody in prison for the wrong thing. I don't care what you hear about all this other stuff, this rhetoric that's on TV, the systemic stuff and all that. Have somebody show you the proof. That's what we do. We show proof. We don't just go by statistics and what people think and I heard. These are things that are done to protect you. That's what cops do. That's the truth. That is the hardcore truth.
We have, we have Joseph Ware locked up now for the rest of his life for this murder, but Barbara Sheppard was a very nice looking young lady with a great personality, very bubbly, and she had a lot of customers that came to Low Bob's just to see her. Would only buy their product from her because of her personality. So what people don't realize is between Galen and I and you and the team, we probably went through 20 plus people to eliminate them to make sure everything was exactly in order.
The burden of proof is on us.
So it sounds easy, like, we have this guy, we have that guy with the hair and it's done, but it doesn't work that way. It's a lot of steps, a lot of work. to get to that. You have to eliminate every possibility, and then when you're left with the truth, that's it. That's where you go.
Well, what happened with Ware when you guys interviewed him?
He's pretty narcissistic. He's
Pretty
he's
Very.
very
narcissistic.
He's very narcissistic. He denied everything. He didn't want to take any kind of responsibility for anything about her. Matter of fact, I think we've interviewed him more than once. And again, we just can't charge him with anything at that time because we have to continue the process, continue investigating all the things that you were just talking about. And it's painstakingly long, it seems like, but you just got to keep moving. In the end, obviously, he still denied killing Barbara. And we just knew, Brian and I knew that we had to keep pushing and also keep an open mind because it's important, like you had said too, that we have to eliminate everybody. We just can't focus on one person until we get the right evidence that we need to.
And this is how narcissistic he was. Back in 2011, you were lucky to get phone records, paper copies of phone records. Now they've totally changed, but he was narcissistic to the point to where he was a gamer. He never left his basement. Mom bought him his PlayStations and he was online playing all the time. He had played online using his cell phone to play his online game. That's where he tapped in from his internet service from. And he put that on pause, leaving his phone there. So as to think that, in fact, I believe at one point he said, check my phone records. I was playing my game, which, yeah, it does show that he was online there. But in fact, after everything's said and done, he was on pause long enough to drive to Mishawaka, kill Barbara Sheppard, and drive back.
So that tells you right there, this wasn't a instantaneous thing. This was a planned event. I set out with a plan.
Yes.
I can take 20 minutes out of my tough day of sitting down in my tidy whities playing video games while I'm eating chicken wings or something to go kill the mother of my kids.
Yes.
Because I don't want to pay support, which I'm not paying anyway. That's why the warrant was there. What a coward. I mean, what a coward.
Very much.
How about here's something new. How about get a job? How about take care of your kids? How about doing the right thing? How about getting your fat ass up off the couch in your tidy whities and go to work?
One other.
Ooh, wow.
What a concept. Huh?
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, knocked it out of the park with that little idea.
One other significance about him when he came in that night, or that morning, actually early morning, when he came in, he had a lacerated finger, which was huge. He and I were both like, okay, so not that we, automatically assume he's guilty or anything, but we asked him about the cut on his finger, and he said that he went to Menards.
A pallet.
And cut it on a pallet. So that was another thing.
But when he answered that, he was fumbling and bumbling and like a hound dog shitting peach seeds. He wasn't right with that.
And so we had to go disprove that by obtaining video from Menards.
Yes.
And there was no video of him getting cut by a pallet out in the parking lot at all, like he said. So that, again, raised another red flag.
But those are the details that, here's the story. Here's what didn't happen. Here's what I said. Here's what didn't happen. And you keep peeling it back until you box them into a corner and you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You say yes, we say no, and here's why we say no. Here's the evidence. You say this, we say that. Here's the evidence.
Right.
That's what I keep saying. Show the evidence. Show it. Don't just talk about it. Show the evidence. So how long of a process was it from December 22nd when she was killed, and we actually got called out on the 23rd, to the time where it got snatched up? You remember?
It was around February of 2012 when he actually was charged, and we were able to arrest him for the murder of Barbara Sheppard.
And the way that happens, just so you know, we had a big conference table like this, and everybody sits around, the prosecutor there, or prosecutors are there, and we keep them up to speed on what's going on with this. So they're up to a certain level, And then comes the day when, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this. We think we got enough. Of course, you guys have the jurisprudence degree. We're just knuckle dragging apes that goes out and collects everything, freezes their butts off, and all that kind of stuff. But we do get a say, and we all sit around, and it's kind of going around the table. What do you got? What do you think? What do you have? What do you think? And finally, it comes to the point where you just kind of look at the prosecutor, and they look at each other, and it's either, hey, look, I want you guys to do a couple more things. We'd like to have this. Yeah, we have enough. Who's going to be signing the affidavit? So what happened that day that we had our little get together, and it was go? Apparently that was a tough question.
No, it wasn't a tough question. I just, once we got the blessing that it's rock solid, we're 100%, let's charge him. I believe he was already locked up, so we knew he was not going anywhere. So before we presented him with the good news, we called his family in and explained to them what we had and what we were doing. And then I believe we went to the jail and read him the good news.
I have to tell you, we always kept the family moderately up to speed. When I say moderately, we can't tell you everything because there's certain things about every crime that only we know, and if it gets spread out and, hey, don't say anything to anybody, you got a friend that you're going to tell them before long, it's at every coffee shop. So when we have somebody come forward and say, this is what was said, it may not be good because everybody in the world knows it anyway. We want pristine virgin information that only we know. So we give the family as much as we can, a lot of times a wink and a nod. We're in good shape on this. We know what's going on. Just hang with us, hang tight. You have to give them hope. They've lost a family member. They've lost somebody. And if they think that nothing's going to be done about it, it works on your psyche. So we keep them up to speed, and when we pull them in and give them the news, because it's good, I can't say good news because that's not really a term because they've lost somebody, so it's never good news. But to let them know that this unit has worked and worked and worked, and now there's a resolution and an answer. There's never closure, resolution and an answer. To be able to do that for a family, that's a very proud moment to know that you've done that, and at least they know. And then to be able to go up and say, hey, can you pull Joey out of his cell and give him the wonderful news that you ain't going anywhere. Your social schedule is going to be tied up, I'm sure. That's always a...
Yeah, and the family of Barbara, they were absolutely wonderful to us, and they were very, very they were happy that we were able to get justice for Barbara, and couldn't thank us more. And it was a lot of hard work, a lot of time and effort, but in the end, it's all worth it.
How did Whitter take it when you broke the wonderful news to him?
Just disbelief. You're wrong. I believe a short time after we explained to him that he was being charged with murder, another one of our jobs is we intercept phone calls. And I believe we captured a phone call where he was talking to mommy. And what did he say, Galen? I'm going to lose a few pounds and I need some glasses so then I will look better for the jury.
He'll look better for somebody in prison.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, he wanted to present himself to the jury to make him look like he's a upstanding citizen.
In fact, when this happened, he had long hair down to his shoulders, but I believe when we interviewed him, he had cut it all off.
Scraggly beard and all that too.
He had cut himself and shaved himself and got himself. Another thing that people need to realize is this is December 23rd. This is 2 days before Christmas when it's family time. Now you've got a mother of two young boys. I think there was 6 and 8 at the time, or 5 and 7.
They're quite young.
And so now here you've got a mom and a grandma that's struggling to take care of these two. We've got our team working through Christmas when we all have kids. It just shows you the dedication that, people are not just a number. People are people, and that's just how we do things.
I think we investigate cases like if it was one of, God, if it was one of our family members,
Yeah.
we would want somebody to investigate how we try to investigate. We do our best.
But we don't pick our suspects, we don't pick our victims. We get the case and we run, and however it turns out, it turns out. If you get caught, we don't care about your ethnicity, we don't care about your male, female, whatever. Don't care. It plays nothing into it. It's the facts, it's the truth. You did it, we got you, you're gone, period. Any of that other peripheral stuff, don't care. That's fluff for somebody else to whine about. We don't have time for that. All right, now we go to court. And we all know how that is, getting prepared for court. You sit down, you have a pre-trial, you go through it. What did you do? You know, notes are taken. Okay, you're gonna be testifying on the second day, which means the 5th day. You're gonna be first up, which means you're 12th up. We're gonna start at 1 o'clock, which means we're gonna start at 3 o'clock. There's never that stuff in 45 years of doing it. If somebody said we're starting at 8 o'clock and you're gonna be first up, you're being lied to. It never works out like that. There's always something going on. But anyway, everybody does their pretrial, everybody's ready to go. You prepare. Cookie, you were the witness in chief on that?
Yes, I was the chief witness in that.
Okay, so that means you have to know that case in and out. You're there every day from start to finish?
Yes.
Okay, how did that go in trial? How did Joey act?
Joe was pretty emotionless. He was. I honestly believe that he was so narcissistic that up until the verdict was read and they said guilty of murder, I honestly believe he thought he was going to get away. At that moment, he became a little weak in the knees and had to sit down.
Is he okay now?
I couldn't tell you.
Check on that and let me know. Will you?
I can tell you he's not going to be a problem with anybody outside of this life range. But when we touched base earlier on how many people we had to interview to eliminate, so during this murder trial, it's not just him and her, and we put it together. All these people that we interview have to come to court because you have a defense that is trying to create doubt in a jury's mind. So every person we thought could be potentially, but we had to eliminate, the defense attorney gets a chance to talk to them and try to throw doubt in there for a jury. And so it's
It
long.
only takes one juror.
Yeah, it's long and it's tedious. But perseverance pays off.
It was what, 5 days?
5 days. I believe we started on a Monday, and I think the jury was out about 5 hours on a Friday evening. And
That's always the toughest part, because in your mind, you know this is it. And now it's coming down to people sitting in there, and you have a lifestyle that's different from that person, and thought process is different from that person. When you finally get that verdict, one of the things that I always watched was when the jury comes back, if they're looking down and they're not looking at the suspect, you're pretty much guaranteed it's thumbs down. That's been my experience. That's what I always.
thumbs down as far as he's guilty.
He's guilty. Yeah.
They don't want to look at him.
Yep. And of course, they always poll the jury. Juror number one, is that your verdict? Yes. Juror, they're always hoping for a lightning strike, but it doesn't happen. How was the family afterwards?
Well, like I said, they were so thankful, and they understood that what we all had to go through because it was Christmas time. And this affects all of us. I don't care how many murder cases that we have. It affects you mentally. It's tiring. To this day, I still recall this case because it was so traumatic, and you go over it a lot, and it really affects you sometimes. We watched the video of Lobob's, inside Lobob's, when Barbara was still in there, and you wish you could just go through that video and say, don't go outside. Don't, it's just those things, you turn into a real person. I know sometimes we feel like we're robots, but it really affects you sometimes, and so you just gotta put it behind you and keep moving. And we know why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, you're actually seeing the last minute of her life. You're watching her, Lance. Kenny, I know you watched it, and so did Al. Oh, we all watched it. You're watching her count down that drawer, doing what she's trained to do, working. She's thinking, okay, it's 2 minutes after 8 or whatever. I get to go home now, and I can eat dinner. I can see my kids, whatever their plans were going to be. And because of somebody like that doesn't have the courage to do the right thing and work, set up a plan, calculate it out, plan it out, put it in place. You've had so many chances between the time you thought of it to the time you did it to stop that, and you continued that process. So this, he's crazy and all. You're not, these people aren't crazy. If you were crazy, you do it, you sit at the curb when the cops pull up, you go, yeah, I killed her, she's inside or whatever. You've calculated it out, you thought it out, you had chances to stop along the way every single time, and you didn't. You perpetrated it, you thought it out, you committed it, and then you continue to lie and cover up afterwards. You went home and ate your bowl of soup or whatever you did, went back down and played your Star Wars game or whatever the hell he played, I don't know. First off, I don't understand 37 years old and you're playing games down in your mommy's basement because you don't have a place of your own. That's a little weird to me, but
I know with the family, when it was all said and done, we received a call from the mom and the mom's sister, which was pretty much spoke for the family because mom was very timid and shy. And they said, we're having a little get together at the house. Will you guys please stop by? And Gail and I went by, and I believe we might have sat there and had a beer or two with them, talked with them, and they dealt with us like family.
Yeah.
And I think for years, every year, she being the aunt and the mom would buy stuffed animals, bring them to our homicide unit, and give them to us to give to little kids in that. And there's probably still up on shelves there that they're still being handed out today.
well, I'm sure you got one at home.
Or two.
Or three.
I'm not judging you, I guess I am kind of. But, here's the bottom line. I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to let everybody say what you want to say. As you can see, we didn't have any family members here tonight. They chose not to be here. That's fine. We're speaking for them. We're speaking for Barbara. So,
Yeah, and it goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, if this ever happened to one of my family members, I would want a team of investigators to go all out, full throttle, find out who did this to my kid or my family member, and get justice for them, because that's all they have. They have no other means of trying to get justice. They have to go through us. We're like the first line of defense for them, or I wouldn't call it defense, but we're the people they rely on to get justice for their family. And so that's how we go. And these guys, I'm so proud of working with everybody, and you as our commander. I mean, I've learned so much, and it makes you feel good that you were able to put together a case that took months and months and hours of a lot of work, a lot of time away from your family, and to see justice being served, it's very satisfying.
Cookie?
I'll hit on the teamwork. We go out sometimes, we're out for 2 or 3 days at a time. And believe it or not, guys will start to get on each other's nerves after that time, because we're running without sleep, without showers. People will start stinking. We're eating crackers and drinking a bottle of water and heading back out for another 2 or 3 hours. But like you said with the bottle cap, every piece is so important. The technicians ended up collecting that brush, one hair, and thank God this little girl fought for her life and had a clump of that brick's hair in her hand. You put them two together, we can prove that they hadn't seen each other for 13 months. That puts a jury over the hump. That hair was not just blew there by luck. It's because we had a team that worked 24 hours a day through Christmas, to make this thing happen.
Lance?
You can be a pro athlete and have your Super Bowl. Working with these guys, that is the Super Bowl, and you can bring closure to a family like that with the teamwork that these guys demonstrate and put into use every day. I mean, it's just phenomenal. The thing that stuck with me was he knew where he was going to take her, how he was going to take her, the violence with which he did it, and the two children that he thought he cared about that he might get, you just took their mother away from them 3 days before Christmas. That's just a real piece of work.
And their father. Now, not that he was any of a father.
No.
Yeah.
Ken?
This case really started out to be a whodunit, and it shows the level of professionalism. I would have to say I've never ever worked with a crew of guys like I have with these detectives. I served 15 and a half years at MHU, and we had this crew, and we all listen to each other. Nobody stands alone and has an ego. Tim was our commander and a great one. You guys figure this out. We all figure this out together. What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? Went around the table. Everybody has input because this is our case. It's a unit case. There's no I in team. And I'd like to say that I was just really proud to have worked with all these brilliant detectives. And we all bring a little something to the table. Everybody has a specialty. And to see it all come together on what would be considered a whodunit is really unique. And we carried a really, really great batting average conviction rate. Tim's probably said it before. We scored really, really high as far as solvability. And it's all because we listened to each other. So
That's been the nation several years.
That's where I'm proud to serve with these guys.
Well, it comes back to me, I guess. I think these guys have said it all. I didn't feel like a commander. I didn't feel like a I was never a supervisor, either a leader or not. But I've said it before. I think you could have put a mannequin in my chair, and these guys would go out and do the job. I was lucky enough to have been there for 17 and a half years, and I enjoyed it. I would continue to do it, but with all this touchy-feely stuff, and I'd last about maybe through roll call before I'd get suspended. So I'm not gonna.
And I think you would have been better looking.
I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But let me say it was an honor and privilege to be a policeman for 45 years. I want to thank all the first responders, all the vets, and all the active military people. I say it and I keep saying it. You are the reason that we're able to do the things that we do. You made this country free, and I'm sure there's people are going to go, oh my God, what a horrible thing to say. Well, you know what? Tough. I'm here on this side of the mic, and I'm telling you, I appreciate it. Thank you. If you ever need anything from me, I have an investigation firm. You can reach me at 574-229-8115. I presently have 3 homicide cases going right now. I'm still working cases. Call me, I'll help you.